I wanted to talk with Holly about Shakespeare because a lot of parents think that Shakespeare is inaccessible to their kids, but we know from experience that Shakespeare can be a lot of fun for their kids. So I've got some books here that we've used, and I wanted Holly and I to talk about them.
So this is called Shakespeare's Storybook. These are the stories that Shakespeare based many of his plays on. The audience he was writing to would have been familiar with many of the stories and ideas here, and sometimes Shakespeare seems difficult because there's so many references people need to understand. So starting with the basic stories is a wonderful way to begin.
So how would you use a book like this?
Well, there is a section before each of the stories that explains the background that this story provides for the play itself. So even if the parent is not familiar with or have recently read Romeo and Juliet, there's a couple pages that are background information to explain to the parent how this story fits in and inspired the play itself. And then you get the story itself. So to be able to read through The Hill of Roses and then go through perhaps a version of Romeo and Juliet that is retold for children, they will get excited to make the connections. And, it gives them different ways to access some of the themes that are in the story.
One of the nice things about using these two books is that this will give the summary. And then we've got a beautiful book like this for the next level of learning the story. It has beautiful illustrations, and it starts to use some of the original language from Shakespeare, but it doesn't inundate the child with the entire story from Shakespeare's original works. So it intersperses summary type information with the original language so that they can start to get an idea of what Shakespeare means when he's talking in Old English.
And they get the rhythm and the melody of the original, which eventually will prepare them to read the entire thing or see the entire thing as a play.
They get to fall in love with the story before they have to tackle the hard part of Shakespeare. And a lot of times with our kids, they aren't introduced to Shakespeare until they're in high school. And the language is still difficult. But if they encounter it early on and they know the stories and how fun they are and how beautiful they are and how tragic they sometimes are, then the language becomes secondary to already knowing the story. This is another great book that helps make Shakespeare really accessible. It's called Stories from Shakespeare, and it works kind of like the one before, where it's got different synopses of the stories with a little bit of the language embedded.
But the pictures here are so beautiful, and they really highlight some of the themes that the kids are going to get excited about. Midsummer Night's Dream is filled with fairies and pranks that Puck plays, and the kids will be able to relate to a lot of the mischief going on in the forest, and they'll get excited about the plots.
Right. A lot of times we start with some of the comedies, and we leave those tragedies for when the kids are a little bit older. But I know that a lot of the kids really love listening to this as we're reading it, and they're listening and being able to see all the beautiful pictures.
And they love acting out little scenes and snippets from the plays, even the tragedies. There's nothing like some of those battle scenes to get them excited about Shakespeare.
We take on Shakespeare a lot at Huckleberry because we give the kids the ability to take classes in acting out Shakespeare through Much Ado About Shakespeare that's partnered with Huckleberry. So a lot of times the kids will learn how to, at an early age, do, like you were saying, a battle scene from a famous Shakespearean play, and then work all their way up to doing a full production of a play like Macbeth.
When I get students who have been through Much Ado About Shakespeare, they come into my class excited. They know what they love about these stories, and it makes it much easier for them to write their own ideas down and develop their ideas into essays.
Remember that Shakespeare is writing about things that are relevant to today's world as well. So the themes that are present in every single one of Shakespeare's plays still is with us today, and they can be explored within the classroom and within their writing.
It's what makes the classics, is that they're timeless. And the things that are discussed, whether it's Homer, Shakespeare, or, Charles Dickens. They're
Right.
all dealing with issues that the kids can relate to if they are shown the connections between the original and things they're familiar with today.
I just wanted to share one more of the books that we've used. This one's called The Best Loved Plays of Shakespeare. This book includes both original language and summaries of what else is going on in the book. So this makes the story very accessible to any age of child.
And again, beautiful illustrations to grab them and have them looking at something as maybe you're reading it to them. There's nothing like hearing Shakespeare aloud. Books like these are going to really get students excited about Shakespeare and enthusiastic to go see productions.